You are watching slash listening to the Accelerating Man series brought to you by themugger.com. My name is Sam Gopinski, and the legend sitting across from me today is none other than Jesse Herrera. For his F3 brothers, he goes by 3 Dubs or WWW. 3 Dubs was the 2019 Hymn of the Year. If you don't know what that means, it's the High Impact Man of the Year for our site in Carpex. He served our country for 25 years in the Air Force and also did a couple years of the Army Reserves. And the man makes a mean spaghetti. He brought dinner to me and my wife when we had our firstborn son. So big shouts to Jesse for that. So how you doing today, brother?
Oh, man, I'm doing good, man. I want to first thank you for – actually, I'm honored that you even asked me to be part of your series because
Of course.
based on the Accelerating Man, I mean, I'm very, very honored. Thank you.
Definitely. So we were just talking a minute ago, just making sure you understood what this whole thing is and talking about acceleration. So real quick, kind of just getting right into it. What is the area of your life right now that you're trying to accelerate?
Well, the area in my life that I'm trying to accelerate is to be a good role model for my daughters. So I have 3 daughters. One is 22. One will be turning 19 in October, and my youngest is going to be turning 16 in November. So I had kids late in my life, and as I was growing up, I've always wanted to be a father. So when we got my first child, I wanted to become a good role model. But a lot of this really started when I finally really realized that I wanted to be a role model is later on in life. Because of things happened in my life previously when I was when I just graduated from high school and then transitioning into the Army Reserve, I was not going down the right path. I got into partying. For example, before I got into my senior year of high school, I was in California. I spent 4 years in California. My mom took us there when I was 11 years old, had a very eventful life. Got to understand what poverty was. Didn't live on the streets, but moved from place to place, trying to just basically just have a pretty decent life, but it was a struggle. With a single parent, my mom struggled to try to keep a job. So we moved from place to place. So I grew up 4 years of my life in California. I've lived in places like Compton. So if you ever hear that word Compton, California, that was a pretty crazy place. And I have stories about that, but that could be at a separate time. But so it was growing up during that time frame was hard. So when my dad finally got a hold of us, I was 16, 17 years old. And I made the transition back to Guam. When I got back to Guam, I got into some bad stuff, smoking, got into drinking at 16, 17 years old, and just continued to party. So I thought joining the Army Reserve, I was going to be able to to kind of control that or get away from it. That didn't happen because everybody in the Army Reserve were all partiers anyways. I mean, these guys were weekend warriors. And every time we did a weekend, guess what we were doing? We were either checking out the vehicles or we're down at the beach barbecuing and drinking and doing all kinds of stuff. This is in the reserves mid. So my whole concept of the military was not what I expected. And then I just continued on that path of drinking more and more, partying more and more, staying late out. And then one day as I was 19 years old, I barely got home. I got drunk at work one day. This was right after work. Just partied, got blitzed like crazy, and drove myself home.
Ooh.
So, and in Guam, the roads is divided by reflectors. I don't know if you've seen those on the roads. So as I was driving, I used the reflectors to kind of stay on my side of the road.
Not a proud moment.
No, driving about 35, 40 miles an hour. So I got home, and as I walked into the house, my dad was waiting up for me. So when I walked in and I looked at him, one of the biggest things that was super impressionable to me at that time was my dad did not say anything, did not yell at me, did not scream, did not freaking beat the snot out of me because he had every right to. But what he did was that silence and the facial expression. He just got up out of the recliner, gave me that look, and walked into the room, got ready for work, and left out. So that impression was embedded in my brain.
So
And
tell me more about that. Like, do you think that had he, lost his mind on you, flipped it, and beat the snot out of you like you deserved, do you think that would have had the same effect on you?
oh no, not right now. It would probably make me do more. It got worse because when you're a teenager trying to grow into your life, you kind of want to be your man. You don't want anybody to tell you what to do. So with him just giving me that look of not really disgust, just disappointment.
Yeah, like you know
Um,
better. You know better why
yes,
you acting like this.
exactly. So I was there. I watched him go to work. Went to sleep on the recliner that he just got off of. When I woke up, all I could see was his face, just the disappointment. And no kidding, I got dressed, and went right to the Air Force recruiter that same day,
Wow.
that afternoon. And I said, "Hey, to I need to get off the island. I
Yeah.
need to go do something more. So I need you to get me an active duty." And the only thing I wanted to be was an aircraft maintenance guy. I just want to work on airplanes. So I had to take the ASVAB a second time, because when I was in high school, we took the ASVAB, and I didn't really give a crap about the ASVAB. I
Right.
just
Yeah.
took it, and so my scores were all plummeting low. I partied all the time, so I really I didn't care. But this time I cared. So I took the opportunity to say, okay, just send me in there, and I'll just do my best at it. So I did. I was able to get the score I need to be an aircraft maintenance guy. And on November 10th, 1987, I signed my life away to go active duty Air Force. That's when we did all the transition paperwork to get out of the Army Reserve. And then on March 21st, 1989, I went off to active duty Air Force. And since that time, I continued my career. And still then, at the time, I didn't realize what I was doing was starting my way of being a role model. I just wanted to get off the island and do something better for myself.
Hmm.
And
Was that common? Kind of where you're from. Like, was that like a seen as a, I don't know, kind of as a good thing to try to go out, kind of spread your wings, do something different?
for a lot of my friends who are still back on Guam doing the same thing, they were kind of intimidated by that. But then the ones who were able to get out and do something with their life, go to college or do something, be successful, then they understood what I was doing.
Hmm.
So I gravitated more to those guys when I went back home and visit and talk to them. And then the ones who are continuing the same life, I kind of tend to stay away from that because they were more toxic than anything.
Hmm.
So my goal was to continue to stay focused and determined to be a better role model for me and my family, especially
So
my girls.
right. So tell me, let's kind of dive into that idea. What does it mean to you to be a role model, and like what exactly is your definition of that?
Um, One good example is being a trustworthy husband to my wife. Um, so when I married my wife, so the story behind that was before I met my wife, I was a I was engaged to be married to somebody else on Guam. Um, and then I found my wife, and my wife knew that I had a relationship on with somebody else on Guam, and because we were drifted apart at that moment at that time, I kind of broke it off because I found out that she was screwing out on me. Um, but I kind of deserved that because just before I left the island, I kind of did the same thing. So I knew it was coming.
Yeah, kind of a match not made in heaven.
Exactly. So so when I did meet my wife in the Philippines, uh, I wanted to be I want to have a good relationship, and that was to be as truthful as I can with her, and to be as honest and to be faithful. So that was what I wanted to continue to do with her, and so that was very important for me.
How long have you been married?
To this date, 31 years.
Yeah.
I just went over 31 on August.
So it sounds like you guys are doing all right.
Yes, it's
This one stuck.
very yes, and the reason being is because she stayed with me for my whole Air Force career, and I've been deployed multiple times, and I was even I had to do what they call an unaccompanied tour for 1 year in Saudi Arabia without her. And she, all through all those times of the deployments, temporary assignments, and that 1 year unaccompanied assignment, she kept my house. She kept the house in order. She basically raised the three girls. So I have a lot of respect for that woman, and she's the foundation and the glue to the family.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the reason why I try to be a role model. And for my daughters, is for them to have someone they can compare to as far as how a woman should be treated.
Yes, yes. You know, I want to keep talking about that because I know that, you know, my daughter's almost 2. Um, and that thought has already crossed my mind.
Yeah.
Like the way that I'm treating my wife, the way that I treat her, the way that I treat my son, and I'm trying to teach my son
Mhm.
how to treat women. You know, I want her to see that and to recognize, hey, this is what a healthy relationship looks like. This is the way that I'm supposed to be treated. I know Kitty and Rapido just talked about that
Yep.
recently about how they're kind of hit, and their daughters are a little bit older, 8 years old, I think.
Yep.
And you know, it just each year, the older they get, the more that probably weighs on you.
Yep.
So yeah, tell me more about that, about trying to creating an example for your daughters to see.
So I want to make sure that when they have their relationships with a boy or an adult or whoever they feel they want to have a relationship with, they I want them to use me as an example as far as how they should be treated, how they should be well respected. When it comes to being faithful, they should be faithful. Because when you get into the marriage, I mean, those vows mean something. They
Mm-hmm.
didn't make it just to make it. They made it for a reason. And when you recite it to each other, there should be some purpose behind it. It should be just a thing. It should be something that when you actually look at it and you read it and understand what it, what, how important it is to a marriage. And if you follow that and drive those vows in a good way, in a positive way, then that's how your marriage is going to succeed. Yes, everybody has their ups and downs in their marriage, and it happens all the time. But if you continue to work on that, and when you have those arguments and you just seem to just cannot get along, but if you find that way to for you, especially for a man is egotistical by nature. So if you're able to sit back and put yourself in empathy, put yourself in their shoes. If you got treated this way, would you feel that way? Obviously, no. So if you get treated a certain way and you get treated with love, respect, kindness, compassion, then you're gonna make them feel loved and well respected and cared for, and and women really want that.
Mm-hmm.
They thrive on that. So think about listening to the repeater. He talked about the love bank, or you guys were talking about it. So you have to constantly feel that. Now, the one thing that a lot of guys do is, so if I do this, what am I going to get out of it? So,
Right. You kind
and
of keep that scorecard.
yeah, and I agree with you 100%. You, as a husband, you should never keep a scorecard. So if you treat your wife with ultimate respect, love, and you do things for them cooking dinner and all that. It's not about that scorecard. It's about you loving them.
Mm-hmm.
That's the love that you have for them. So you continue to do what you can to make him happy, because if happy home, happy life.
Right. Right.
Yep.
So let's talk about, you know, maybe a couple other people. So you want to be a good role model for your daughters, but who else? Who else in your life are you trying to kind of exhibit this positive example to?
The people I come in contact with, like my F3 brothers, um, we've had multiple leadership talks. There's a time where we actually did that um, that one discussion group, that one third F discussion group about how to be a better husband, better father. And I try to get involved in all of those, because you constantly have to continue to work at it. You'll never, and as Rapido said, if you don't work at it, you're not stagnant, you decelerate.
Mm-hmm.
So I always want to accelerate. So I always do what I can to listen to stuff. For example, Smokey has a great thing about the relationship road trip. So those things I try to get involved with to try to be a better leader, how to be better in your family. So those are the things that I continue to work on. Listening to F3 with Dread and Dark Helmet when they talk about the leadership stuff, and they go over the Q source. And so as a man, in order for you to continue to accelerate, you got to continue to learn. Even though you heard it before, you may understand it differently. And when you understand it differently, you apply it differently. So the more you do, the better you get at it. It's just like a professional player. How do they become professionals? They practice and practice and practice. And when they don't practice, they start making errors. They're not at their best. So in order to be your best, you got to continue to work and work and work. And you got to put the work in to be the ultimate role model out there.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, and it's funny, you know, I'm glad you brought up the F3 guys, because in the opening, I was kind of jokingly referring to you as the 2019 Hymn of the Year in Carpex, a high impact man. So a couple of years ago, I can't even remember who did it. It might have been Hello Kitty. Coined this new award, this new annual award called the Hymn of the Year. And so our buddy Disco Duck got it the first year. It was just kind of a joke at first, but then it was like, no, this is like legit. And the whole idea behind it is that, you know, when you got selected last year, it was because people were watching you and watching your example and seeing that, hey, this guy, he shows up, he puts in work every single day. He's not the fastest guy. I mean, like you said, you've got some knee issues, so you're a little bit hampered by that. But if there's anybody else who's a new guy, you always are saddling up right next to him and saying, hey, how you doing? My name's, you know, such as that. Like, you're trying to cultivate relationships with those kind of guys and bring them into the fold. You'll never let a guy walk by himself, you know, if he's on the DL and he needs some help like that. And again, like, you know, you brought a meal to my wife and I when our firstborn son was born. You know, it's like, it's kind of, you know, those sorts of things. You're a high impact man, and you don't, you know, you're not loud and boisterous and braggadocious about it. You just go about your business, and men see that and they look at you and they think, man, this guy, he's a high impact man. And so I'm glad that this is the thing that you're talking about with, you know, being a role model, because exactly, like, and it's like, the 43 feet podcast that you were referencing, you know, they talk in their intro and their outro about being 43 feet out front, right? So if you're a good leader, essentially you're paving the way for others to follow, but you're only so far ahead of them, right? And so you're kind of getting into it just as much as they are. They're just right behind you. But I always see that you're trying to be kind of that 43 feet ahead and kind of forging that example. So that's good.
Good.
So from there, I mean, let's talk about, you know, when did this realization come up that, like, hey, like, there's a responsibility here, and I really want to focus on that? Was there like a specific point in time that happened, or has it just kind of been an evolving sort of idea?
Yes. Where I really evolved and where the actual term became the reality was on October 18, oh, I'm sorry, June 18, 1998. That was the year my oldest daughter was born. Um, I did, at that time, me and my wife were married 10 years. And we had a great, we had, up to that point, we had an awesome relationship, but we knew we wanted more. We knew we had more to give. Um, so when my daughter was born, I mean, every man, when they are ready to be a father and they have their first child, it's it's hard to explain, and everybody knows that it's just mind blowing. I mean, that you and your wife was able to have a child, and now the reality sets in.
Right.
What are you going to do? Like, oh my God, you got this child in your life, and they're super impressionable, and everything you do, they will mimic. So how do you want to portray yourself? What do you want to do? How are you going to sit there and be the mirror for your child to sit there and mimic? I know they're a daughter. It's my daughter, but I'm a guy, but I want them to do their best to have something to mimic, as far as good traits, work ethic, um, how to treat people, how to care for people, how to serve. So those things now that my oldest daughter's 22, I'm starting to see that in her today. And that just makes me glow,
Hmm.
because for me, I think I'm doing my best to be a good dad, a good role model. So October, I keep saying October, but June 18th, 1998 was when that reality set in on me wanting to be a better role model as we move forward in life. Was because of my daughters. And then I had two more on October 10th, and then my youngest on November 18th. And I've always wanted to continue that. And if they know what a man's supposed to be, that accelerating man, that high impact man, then they know what to be looking out for, as somebody to be suitable suitors for them, uh,
Sure.
in their life.
Yeah, you talk about them being kind of sponges. My son was 4, and I can tell you right now, it's a tough phase of life where, when they're real, real young, you feel like, yeah, I can kind of get away with doing this or
Yep.
doing that because they're not really making memories yet.
Yep.
But a 4-year-old knows, he watches everything you
Oh,
do. He says every word that you say. I've gotten in trouble a couple times on that one. So you just, the time is now to kind of be that good
yep.
example. Um, you talked about how, some of the fruits of your labor now, you're seeing that in your 22-year-old, how um, things are starting to click for her and make sense
Yep.
for her. So let's talk about more of those sorts of things. Like, what are some of the benefits that you've seen come out from being a good role model? And then kind of on the flip side of that, where are some of the things where you've fallen and um,
Okay.
have made mistakes and have had challenges and that sort of thing?
Uh, Most of it is, as I kind of go on in trying to be a better role model. It's so one at work, how to be a good manager, good leader. So they say there's always a difference between a manager and a leader. With a leader, that's where you become a better role model. So one of the failures that I did, so in the Air Force, or in the military, it's very easy to be, it's easier to manage people because we have the UCMJ, the Uniform Code of Military Justice. So if a person doesn't follow orders, I could court martial that individual, and that person can go to jail, or we can take money away. In the civilian sector, that's not going to happen. It doesn't happen that way. You're not going to go to jail because that person says to F off, um, but you can discipline them in a certain way. So one example, the first time I got into a shouting match with one of my employees, as soon as it happened, I realized, I knew I was at fault. It wasn't that individual's fault. It was my fault. It was my fault for escalating to that person's level. And as a leader, you never escalate to your subordinates level. You should always be better than than an even kill. So that way, that escalation will de-escalate. They'll de-escalate back down to being calm. And when you escalate with them, they continue to escalate. And if you don't recognize that very quickly, it can get out of control so fast. But luckily, I was able to realize what I did wrong and corrected it quickly, just de-escalated quickly. But that individual was already pissed off. And if it wasn't for another employee, which is our EH&S, which was a lady, she kind of helped bring us back to talking. And all I could do was apologize. So one of the things about being a role model is know when you're wrong and never be afraid to apologize and for your mistakes. But the thing that you should always learn from that is when you apologize is try not to let it happen again, because it's not gonna, it should never happen again. You should always be a better leader. So one of the things that I did to kind of help fix that was I wrote myself up and I submitted my disciplinary work, my disciplinary paperwork to my boss. And he says, "What is this?" I said, "Sir, because I screwed up. I messed up. So I'm taking accountability for myself." Another way to be a role model, that I shouldn't have, as a manager and as a leader, I shouldn't have escalated to that level.
Wow. That's a strong move. That's a strong move right there.
Yeah. So he took it and he threw it in his desk. He said, "Jesse, I know you're better than that. And what's good about it was you learn from it." And since then, I've been with the company for 7 years. I continue to be the leader that a lot of the associates come to for information, even just to talk about personal stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I believe in the terminology of my door's always open. I have an open door policy. Now, when it comes to stuff that they want to complain about, then the open door is kind of, there's a few steps to get to me. But if you want to come talk to me personally about a person, then we could talk. But when you have to come around and talk about a supervisor, then I want you to deal with the supervisor first. And then if the supervisor has an issue and continues to go the same route that you're not happy with, then you can come to me. Mm-hmm. But it's always be twofold. You always have to work to try to figure out the problem at your level. And then from there, if you can't figure it out, then you go to another leader to kind of help you fix that problem. So those are the role model things that I like to do, is to lead from the front and just to be the better man.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I like that example because it started off with you failing at something, recognizing it, and having the humility to kind of accept responsibility for what you did, take accountability for it. And that taught you something. You know, it was hard, but that taught you something. And so then because you did that, you know, I'm sure everybody around you saw, hey, this guy is trustworthy. You know, I know that he's going to treat me fairly because he's treating himself fairly. Like what you did was wrong, and you're going to treat yourself the way that you ought to be treated. Yeah. So I think that's a really cool kind of example, cool takeaway. I don't know that I would have the the stones to write myself up. I don't know that I could do that. But so thinking about being a role model, like that's hard. That sort of thing is a difficult thing. But like, what keeps you motivated to kind of stay in that fight?
All honesty, my family, my wife, my kids, and eventually, hopefully, in the future, my grandkids. I always want the people I work with, my F3 brothers, that's what drives me. The one thing I've always wanted to do is I like to serve. I like to help others. And I don't help others because I want to keep that scorecard. No, I help others because if I have the time in my life to be able to do that, I'm going to go help because it's what's needed and it's what's right. It's the right thing to do. So in order to be a role model, you got to do what's right. Mm-hmm. And you got to do what makes you feel good. So when you serve others and you see that expression on their face or that that gratitude, that's the whole meaning about being, about serving, that servitude. Um, and to do that, you got to be a role model, continue to be that role model, but you got to continue to grow too.
Right.
So if there's anything out there that will help you to be that role model, to be that better man or that better person, then continue to do that. Because you'd be surprised, the old stuff that you learn and you go and learn it again, you might find something different that you can learn from. And so that's what's I want to continue to do is I like to serve and I like to help others. And if I have stuff in my house that you need to borrow, I'll let you borrow it, let you use it. If you need it and you need it to keep it, I'll let you keep it. I can go buy another one.
Right.
I've been very fortunate in life that I was able to keep my wife at home. So we do very well with each other. I mean, I do very well to be able to have my wife stay at home and take care of the family.
Sure.
And so as far as stuff that's around my house, they're just stuff.
Yeah.
They really don't have a lot of great meaning, except one, they make me happy. But if it's going to make somebody else happy, I don't mind giving away. So one of the biggest things I love to do is make hot sauce. And I buy a lot of ingredients for it. But what I do, I don't sell it. I just give it away. Why? Because if somebody loves hot sauce, guess what? I'm gonna give you hot sauce,
Yeah.
and I'll let you. And if you like the hot stuff, bro, I can give you some hot stuff.
Well, let me tell you, I like hot sauce. So I don't know what you're
Hey,
posting
brother,
tomorrow, but we'll
I
have
got
to
a bottle
connect.
for you, man. Definitely.
That's awesome. So
Definitely.
one last thing. I mean, this is kind of unscripted, but do you ever think about your legacy and kind of like the legacy you're leaving behind? And you know, is that somewhat of a motivation to you to be a good example and to kind of live right?
As long as I'm living happy, I'm content, and continuing to accelerate, that's my legacy.
Yeah.
If my family is happy, my friends are there to, uh, when they need help and I'm there to help them. And a lot of stuff is reciprocal. When you give love, you get love.
Right.
And that's the legacy. That's all the legacy I need. Just loving people and continuing to be somebody that people look up to. Um, not, I'm not trying to brag or anything, but that's amazing. When people talk about what you do and when they consider you to be a high impact man of the year, I never expected that. I just wanted to continue to accelerate and be a better man.
Yeah.
And if that's to help people, that's what I'm going to do. If that's to take the shirt off my back and give it to somebody, that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
If it's to be that 43 feet in front of them, to continue to lay that path, that asphalt for them to follow, so that way they don't continue to stumble, that's what I'm going to do. So yes, the legacy is just, as far as I'm concerned, is just to be loved and to be well respected and to continue to be the best role model possible.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you one of the criteria for the hymn of the year is that the man who gets it isn't trying to get it. You know,
No,
there's no competition for it. This is
true.
an honor foisted upon somebody without their without their consent. So, but I just appreciate you, Jesse, Three Dubs, because I've always seen you as a role model. I've always seen you as somebody who's a high character man.
Yeah.
I love what you do within our group of working out and all that stuff. And I know that your family is so important to you, so dear to you. And I said it, I think when I had my the interview with Jamie, that I said something about the currency of relationships is so
Yeah.
much more
Oh
important
man.
than money or fame or a good job or the trophy wife or whatever. Like, and I see that in you, man. You're a rich man, because I see that your relationships are on point. And so, thank you for that example. Thank you for your leadership. And I mean that sincerely.
Yeah.
I know we joke,
Thanks, bro.
but I mean that sincerely.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Callie, Sam. What you just said, that's legacy.
Exactly.
That's being a role model. And so I completely love what you're doing with this accelerating man. I'm glad you started it because there's a lot of high impact man in F3, especially in our Carpex area, man. And it's what's amazing is to watch these guys come in and just you can see just the explosion of what these guys do, how they get involved. And so, all honesty, F3, and I say it to this day, F3 has been a huge impact in my life. And I go out there and I talk about it a lot. When people ask me about it, I say, man, it's about what you get out of it personally. You can go there just for the fitness. Okay. But there's more to just fitness, and what they always say about the fellowship, that's the glue. And I agree 100%. And then when you continue to grow your faith, that makes you even a better high impact man. So as you continue to do that, you continue to accelerate, then you continue to be a better role model in life and where people want to continue to follow.
Yep.
So thank
Exactly.
you. I
Yeah. Yeah.
appreciate it.
I mean, I think that's how this all came about. Is I just kind of looked around the room and thought, hey, I surround myself with some great people, man. Let's talk about this kind of stuff a
Yep.
little bit more. So, um, but thank you again for your time today. I really really appreciate it.
Yep.
Um, for those of you listening, watching, if you were interested in doing an interview like this, talking maybe about something that you're accelerating in, please hit me up. You can send an email to muggoconnect@gmail.com.
Yep.
You can hit up _muggo at on Twitter, and that's the handle, or you
Mm.
can find the Muggo on Facebook as well. I rarely go on Facebook because it is the devil, but I will check it. But again, Jesse, I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Would you do me the honors of taking us out?
Yes, brother. Blue Diamond.
Yes, sir.